Yeah, I mean that's speaking to the history of MMA. I mean, for me, I mean, obviously there was something with the Congress and calling it human cockfighting and then banning it, and then everything that happened. But for me, I really think, in my personal opinion, watching the UFC, it was you and Tito. That fight for me was like the change. Is like, wow, UFC is this legitimate like sport, like an actual respected tough sport. And that to me, I saw the change where, weight classes came about in the UFC. It was all about it was conditioning. It wasn't just like getting Tank Abbott in there and, doing a barroom brawl, seeing what styles beat each other. I think you were the first actual, in my mind, the turn of the not the century, but, the turn of martial arts where it was about mixing it and actually embodying the term MMA and making it a sport. Was that your vision, or like, was that what you guys were training in the Lions Den? It was about making it like about mixed martial arts to completeness and making it a long-term sport. Is that what it was?
Yeah, well, that became the, secondary driving factor for a long time in my career. Because, at the time when I became UFC champion, I, was setting all these records, I was doing all these things, but we had literally lost like 90% of our audience. So we just didn't have the numbers to, make money, impact, do all these different things. So it just took a while to build all that up and to create, such a brand, such an opportunity that you can pick and choose or do this or do that or make deals or, fight in boxing, like whatever you want to do. But what I remember most about fighting was like every day you wake up and you're like, this is a sport I need to get out of. This is really dangerous.
Sort of true,
Yeah. Every day you're like, I lose a foot today. These are not good probabilities, when you go to work. It's like being a lumberjack. You lumberjack guys, it's like the most dangerous profession. Like, how do those guys feel in the morning? They're like waking up, they're like, all right. Have a great day, hon.
The tree may fall on me. I'm not really sure what's going to happen, but it's true. Like,
see you later.
It's interesting you bring that up because as fighters, right? We all, when we step onto the mat or you guys stepping onto the cage, you just don't know what's going to happen, and I think it's one of the things that sort of propels us. Like, what could happen in this situation? Like in this chaos, like what is going to happen, during this fight?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful human expression, which is, arguably the world's oldest. It's fighting and the other F that are competing in the world, oldest and funnest and things everyone wants to be doing. It's extraordinary. And I've watched watching Japan, because I started in the 90s, and just watching them socially develop and become more westernized and accept different presentations and like watching their culture develop, watching our culture develop, because now I'm almost 50. It's really interesting to see what people want to see in their fighting. They want to see fighting. That's a given. But then like, what is it, and what are the reasons, and that very in that way, it's very much what's happening socially, and what's going on the streets. Like, it's very much how people are feeling, and that is a cool experience to be a part of when you're like the performer.
Yeah, and take us through that, because specifically for this podcast with the Jiu-Jitsu Motivation, I wanted to bring up, a lot of people don't realize the history that you have specifically, fighting in pancrase in Japan, and then like the whole history of, shoot fighting. A lot of people don't realize, and the combination of that with the roots of catch wrestling specifically, that was mostly the roots of the Lions Den with you and Ken. I don't know if I'm right there. Can you bring us through that?
Yeah, that's right. Ken first started training, oh God, I would butcher these names, with a couple of shooters back in the day. And then after a while, he got invited to Japan. And I know he trained and competed with the Fujiwara group. And over there, that's, one of the legendary names of the basics of professional wrestling. And, Japan just has a different mindset. Their professional wrestling is more real. Their presentations are different. So that's where our base comes from, is that whole, Fujiwara system, which you see all throughout, the fabric of mixed martial arts, especially in Japan. And it's a grappling based system, but it's slightly different because it's really secretly at its core based on entertainment. So it has more, movement based activities. Most of the stuff is designed to be, large motor, gross motor skills, so that you can create activity. And that's part of the sport itself, is that you perform hard and, break things down, tire things out, grab things, submissions. And then, maybe the difference between jiu-jitsu and I learned all this in Japan. I was completely clueless until Ken beat me up and then was like, all right, well, here's how it works. I was like, really? It's not like in the movies where I'm going to do this kind of stuff, but all of a sudden I'll know these things and I'll go fight. So it's just a lot of, drilling and conditioning and, like I said, full body gross motor skill, things that you'll do while performing so you don't get tired.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, when they think MMA, especially if people that just train jiu-jitsu, they think, oh, okay, UFC, okay, Royce Gracie, people do Brazilian jiu-jitsu for their ground, and then they do some, collegiate wrestling, and then they do Muay Thai and kickboxing. But, a lot of people don't realize that there's a whole separate, specific grappling-based Japanese wrestling, catch wrestling specifically, which is, I mean, way older than even, jiu-jitsu or Brazilian jiu-jitsu itself, that people don't realize. What was your, since you came from that catch wrestling and shoot-based background, when you were hearing, Gracie's jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, especially Ken fighting Royce that first time, what was your view on it as to how it compared to what you guys did?
Well, at the time I hadn't, so by the time Ken fought Royce, I think I was still in prison. I don't think I'd gotten out yet because I got out in '94. Mm-hmm. But it was just a huge mystery. I was there on the ground training, mopping mats, learning all this stuff. And I could hear how people talked about it. People just nobody knew what was happening because it was new and it hadn't been exposed. We didn't have technology, we didn't have YouTube. Maybe we did. But you couldn't find this stuff and you couldn't understand it. So it goes back to the mystical martial artsy thing. It created all kinds of stuff. One of my funniest memories, I was probably 22, maybe 23 years old. I was cornering Ken, one of his bag boys and cut men, and he pulls me over. He's like, "Hey Frank, go look in the other dressing rooms of the other fighters and tell me what their uniforms are." I go, okay. So I went over, I looked at them all, I came back and I told him. He's like, oh, all right, perfect. That was the research back then. Like, what's his outfit? Because that's where the chasm we were crossing was from, something brought into the idea of martial arts that slowly turned into a sport. And during that dark time, like, my job became make it a sport. So I was the spokesman. I was hired to go around, talk to everybody, try to figure out, hey, what do we need? And they, be rounds, or you need this and you need that. And so we would slowly keep adding to it and building up, what they needed for us to get back on cable and sort of reach the masses.
Right.
And so that was a fun part of my second phase of my career.
So what was he deducing by their outfits? I have to ask this. What was the purpose? Right? I need to know this. I need to know this now.
Yeah. I've actually been waiting for that question for a long time because nobody picks that one up. No, because at the time, you really had, judo, Kempo karate. Like, you had these very basic, sort of martial arts styles that had been around for a while and had some mystique and provability, and so there's a lot of martial arts sort of in it. Right. Because that was the Nexus idea. The Nexus idea is, why can't martial, and this is Bob Meyerowitz' idea, this is not mine, but he told me when he started the UFC, it was because he was in a car ride with a friend of his who was the head of the judo commission, I believe it was. And Bob would always ask him, well, why can't the karate guy fight the judo guy? And the guy would be like, no, he can't, because the rules are different, all these different things. And so Bob liked the idea of, all these martial arts styles fighting and seeing which one was the best. Like, hey, who's the best? Like, let's figure that out, and then we'll do something about it. And that's how the UFC really started, was on that, martial arts idea.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, like if you're looking in the dressing room, it's pretty easy to identify everybody. You got a judo gi, you got a karate gi, boxing gloves, wrestling shoes, maybe
you got one glove hanging up.
One glove.
It's Art Jimerson. I didn't know he was going to be here, but yeah, it was a wild time. Like I saw a guy get knocked out in the semi-main event. He knocks a guy out. Woo! Harold Howard was his name. He's the biker guy from Canada. Funny guy. Knocks out, I think, Cal Worsham. Elbow. Walking down the lights, and our ramp was really tiny, as well as the cage to get through. And when you're off television and get in the backstage for the UFC, to be in all these crazy venues. And he's walking. He's like, yeah, and the swinging light hits him right in the temple and just knocks him unconscious. He falls face first like this, just flat as a pancake. Boom, and he's out. And I'm like, holy hell! I was probably 22, maybe 23. And I was like, what on earth? And I was just starting to understand like what happens when you get knocked out. I'm like, well, that can't be good. And so they take him in the back, they put him on the table, and they give him smelling salts, wake him up. And within 12 minutes, he was out there fighting in the main event.
That's
I was
great.
like, yeah, I don't know. I think some regulations might be a good idea. And I think this is a really dangerous, activity.
Yeah, you knew they were in trouble when they gave the purse to the light for the fight.
It's scary. Yeah.